Welcome, guys. It's Friday night and it's a crew night. So happy to see you right now. I want to introduce you to these amazing people right here. Guys, introduce yourselves. Actually, it's probably better.
All right. Well, I'm Dickie, and yeah, I'm an assistant head in a secondary school in Battersea.
I'm Milto, and I'm a student.
I'm Jedediah, and I just play football and have a sort of social media presence.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. So, guys, I know that you're probably watching from the park or on a Zoom even with your crews, but just in case you're not in a crew, which is absolutely mad right now, let me tell you what a crew actually is. A crew is a group of young people all over London who are meeting up, having dinner together, laughing, joking, and just doing life together and learning about God and growing in God. So if you're not in a crew, you need to get in one. Fab. So this week, we're going to be talking about practical influence, what that looks like and how we can actually influence the people in our world. So I thought we would kick off with the gospel, because I think that's a great place to start. Simply put, the gospel is the fact that Christ came down and he died on a cross for our sins, and because of that sacrifice that he made, we now get to live in a beautiful relationship with him. And because of that decision that we make, the Holy Spirit now dwells within us, and now we are now influenced by the greatest being on this earth, God. And not only that, but he gives us a mandate, a purpose, and that purpose is for us to go out and influence others so that they can partake in this amazing, beautiful relationship. Now, guys, we are all different. We're all come from different walks of life. And that how we influence people in terms of bringing them to Christ looks different for each one of us. So, Dickie, for you, what does that look like in your sphere? And even tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I, as I say, I'm an assistant head in a secondary school, and I think for me, it's that word you used, relationship, is so key. But you can't actually, what I've discovered is you can't have relationship without actually being consistently there. So being present.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key. My job is overseeing pastoral care. Now I can't help teenagers if I don't know that teenager. Yeah. I can't know what's going on in their life without having a relationship with them. So for me, the biggest thing is just first, not looking for the issues or anything like that, is just simply connecting with that young person to a level where they can then start to talk to me about what is going on, and then I can lead them. So it's kind of you want to influence, you want to lead, but you've got to start with connection. You've got to start with a relationship, and that actually just starts with that idea of just being present and consistent.
Milto, how about you?
Yeah, I think for me, how I've brought friends to church is I've I post stuff on my social media, oh, I'm at Careers again, or I'm at the warehouse, back in those days. And my friends go, oh, where are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm at church. And they go, oh, this is your church? And I'm like, yeah. And they have an interest in it. Yeah, casually. And then they're like, oh, I really want to come. And that's how I've gotten my friends into church and into wanting to know Christ, is just by showing that it's not kind of clearing the smoke in the mirrors and just letting them see it for what it is. It's, once again, it's about connection, it's about relationship. I have so many friends from church and they see, oh, we're not these holier than thou people. We're people, and we can have friendships. We're all liable to fail, but at the end of the day, we're human and we'll accept anyone, regardless of whether they're perfect or not.
I love that.
That's good.
I love that. How about you, Jed?
So I'd say for me, it's very similar to you, just trying to be vocal on my Instagram, Snapchat, wherever it is, and not being afraid to have my voice in terms of what it is being a Christian and whatnot. So it's kind of not being afraid to share. So for example, when I got baptized, I posted my baptism video on my Instagram and it got the most views and likes on that, and there were so many comments. And I got loads of supporting messages as well, kids asking me what it was like and stuff like that. So I feel like it's just not being afraid to share who we are and like why we are the way we are.
I love that.
And it's like also the thing of, like we were saying, being present, consistently speaking about these things on social media so people know what you stand for and they're not afraid to show what they stand for as well. Because I remember growing up in secondary school in my area, which was Kent, it was kind of like you weren't scared to say you were a Christian, but you didn't want to be laughed at the same time, so you kind of tried to
have that,
tried to blend. But as I got older and I became more confident in my faith, I was like, you know what, I'm not scared to say this is what I'm about. And if you're like me, because I know so many people have gone through the same thing, it's like, I'm saying it, you should say it too. Let's change everyone else together. Don't let everyone else change us.
Wow, I love that. And one of the things you just said, which I think is so powerful, is that that desire to blend. And I think if we're gonna practically influence the people around us, I think we have to have the ability to stand. We have to have the ability to speak up. So in terms of what that looks like for a young person. So say if there's someone watching right now and they feel like, you know what, I want to be someone who influences my world, what kind of encouragement or what kind of things can they put in place where it's like, okay, how are you going to stand? How are they going to be able to speak up in their environment? You guys got any tips or advice?
I think for me is, I covered this a little bit with my guys at school, is that I think as a society we've lost the ability to disagree well or be different well. And I think for me, my encouragement, like, because that fear is a big thing. Like if people are scared to actually stand up and say, I'm this, because they're different. And it's, you know, and it's tricky. So my thing would be, well, what I think I would encourage a young person with is to say, just be that example first. So if someone comes to you and says something, don't like let your emotions get the better of you and freak out and everything. Be the example in that moment and go, cool, okay, fine, yeah, you're different. But then you know, so that, and you kind of don't need to go steaming in with how you're different either. It is about just building those foundations of relationship. It comes back to that. It's not like just, you know, first day in a new school, stand up on stage with a microphone and go, I'm a Christian. And it's not about that. It's about building relationship so that when the differences come out, there's not shock and there's not emotion, there's not, you know, and someone might say something to you and you might completely disagree with it. It might be way out of your like politics or religion or whatever. But if you don't freak out and you just set an example of what it is to disagree and be different well, then maybe people, you know,
So true.
it'll just start spreading through whatever influence or whatever sphere you're influencing.
And I think even what you just said, it reminds me of Zacchaeus. And one of the things that always just got me about that story, if you guys don't know the story of Zacchaeus, he was like this tax collector guy. And he basically, Christ said, oh, I'm going to have dinner at your house. And he used to like, you know, just rip people off basically. And at the end of meeting Jesus, he's like, oh, I'm going to give back. And then I'm also going to pay double. And I always think, what was it that Christ said while they were having dinner that caused him to not only change his way, but to be like, I'm gonna go above and beyond. Like, that's real influence. Influence causes a change. And I just think sometimes it is simply that presence, you know, that presence of God that it dwells within each one of us that causes that change. So the same way that Zacchaeus was impacted by God, how have people or something or someone impacted you for the better? Like, is there something that really stood out about what someone done? Like, what was the practical things that they done to influence you? That's to anyone.
I'd guess it's the best way for me to put it is the way they behave. Because like you were saying, you don't want to just stand up, get a microphone and say, oh, I'm a Christian. It's more the actions that we do and how we behave ourselves that like would push other people. So the example of Zacchaeus, I feel like it's not that Christ would have said anything to him, but just experiencing for himself firsthand the way Christ was as a person and how he like lived and acted, it would have prompted him to be like, oh, I want to be like him. Because he's acting this way, he's happy, everyone loves him, sort of thing. I want to be like that. What can I do to be like this person? So he tried to like imitate the giving nature, the loving nature of Christ after that. So I feel like it's just the way we behave and the way other people behave towards us.
That example,
impacts us,
I think on that, like, the thing with Jesus is that he was in it. He knew what his beliefs were, and he knew that he needed to present himself in a way that reflected the way he believed. And I think it comes into that conversation of we can't live in lukewarm Christianity. We have to be committed to it. And that's the only way that we can truly show and reflect the love of God. Because how can we expect people to come into Christ when we haven't shown them what Christ is? I think one quote that I think about is the Gandhi quote. It's like, I like your Christ, I don't like your Christians. It's because people who claim Christ don't necessarily live like him. So how can we preach about how great the gospel is when we can't live it out ourselves?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. I think for me, I've been, an example is I've been led by two different styles of leaders like I can think of in my head. My head teachers, I've had one, or I have one, that is all about just relating to you as an individual and has had some polarised views having to deal with in his staff team, for example. And what I've learnt from him is that you can basically, you don't have to, you can accept a person, but you don't have to agree with what they stand for. And that's been really important for me to understand, because I've gone into a leadership position in a school, and I still feel like I'm new on the job after 3 years, but like I'm learning every day. But that's the big thing, because I've worked for a leader that wasn't about that, and they were led by emotions, and they were led by they reacted to everything, and they were outward processing, and everything kind of went blah, and it all came out their mouth, and they would offend loads of different people, and it would the whole staff team was like just fractured. But I've learned this lesson now of, as I say, if you can accept the person, you don't have to agree with what they stand for. And I think that's the example of Zacchaeus, is that Jesus accepted him as a person, didn't accept what he stood for, agree with what he stood for, or condone what he stood for, because he was a thief, ultimately, you know. But you can accept the, as I say, the person, but not having to, and that's going back to what I said about disagreeing well. Like, we can disagree with each other, it's fine, but doesn't mean we have to hate the person just because we disagree with what they stand for.
I love that. So what about the person who is maybe thinking that they don't have any influence, that they are, or maybe they're just like, you know, I'm gonna just do me. Like, I don't really care about like what people think or what people say and stuff. Do you guys agree with that kind of statement? Is that something that you feel like is part of our mandate as Christians? Like, what do you guys think?
I disagree.
You do?
Straight up. I think if you live in society, people are going to see you, and therefore you have an influence.
Nice.
And I think regardless of how big or small, people think you need to have a platform to have influence. The platform is a speaker, it's not your microphone. At the end of the day, you have influence regardless. You have influence over your small circle, but you still have an influence. And I think it gets more complicated when you get to the point of celebrity, because then everything you say is advocating something. And that's when you get all these people getting called out for, you know, endorsing certain things, when in reality, you know, it's not all that good. It's because whether you want it or not, you have influence. So you have to be more careful with what you outwardly say. And it's more that you have to do that inward processing rather than outward processing, because everything you say will have an impact on someone.
Yeah, so strong.
That's good.
And I have another kind of thought. I think, let me get the scripture. I think it is 1 Corinthians 9:19-23. And I'm not going to read it all because it's mad long. You guys can read it in your own time. Do you know what I'm saying? Download the Bible app if you don't have it. But basically, Paul is basically saying that in order to share the gospel, in order to be an influencer in every sphere, he decided that he was going to be all things to all men. And that is such a powerful statement and not an easy thing to do. Like, how do you think it is to manage that balance between I'm gonna pour out my life, I'm gonna give myself, but I'm not gonna be fake. I'm not gonna be disingenuous. Like, do you think you're able to have that balance? Like, any thoughts on any thoughts on that? Because it's a massive topic.
Yeah, it's very.
I think it's about going for the person, and that's, I think, what Paul was saying. There's people, and it goes back to what I was saying before. Like, there's people that are going to be aligned to certain political organisations, religions, whatever. I don't know, but you just kind of got to get rid of that and forget it and go for the person. And I think you just got to meet the people where they're at. Doesn't matter who, you know, what they're a part of, or who they work for, or what their views are, or what football club they support, or whatever, you know. Doesn't matter. No. That's just the thing. But the person is the person. So I think it's just about meeting that person where they're at.
Fab. I wanted to touch on something you said earlier. You spoke about your friends and that influence, and do you want to just highlight that a little bit?
Yeah, so I was saying, I feel like it's important to have the right people around you, because just as much as we influence others, others are able to influence us.
Yeah.
So in the Bible, it says in Proverbs 27, verse 17, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
In the same way, one person sharpens another one's character. So like that statement, I'm gonna do me, we don't do life by ourselves, we do life with those around us. And it's important for us to like have fellowship with people around us. But we also need to remember that we influence those people when we spend time with them. Like, the more you spend time with someone, you become like them, they become like you. You say the same things, laugh at the same stuff. So that, like, having the right circle around you and having the right people around you is how we are able to, like, first of all, influence each other, and then on a wider scale, that group of people can influence everyone else.
Yeah.
So it's just that, like, back and forth sort of thing.
I love that so much.
Yeah, that's good. I say to the young people that I lead a lot, I say to them, show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, and it often makes them go, oh. Yeah. You have an audit of your friendship group. It's important.
You're gone?
Yeah.
You're gone? You're gone?
Yeah.
You need to sort yourself out? No. This has been a great conversation, and I just want to end on this verse from, and I feel like it's such a, when I say it in my mind, I say it in like a boss voice, but I'm not going to do that because it's just going to...
Oh, go on.
Yeah, I can't. It's just... Yeah, I can't. It's John 10, 17 to 18. Crap, I got it in the New King James Version, but it still works. Therefore, my Father loves me because I lay down my life, that I may take it again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have the power to lay it down, and I have the power to take it again. The command I have received from my Father. I love that so much because we have the choice to actually lay our lives down and to actually give ourselves to be an influence in our society, despite the different backgrounds where we all come from, the dreams that God has placed on our heart. The goal is the same. The Great Commission has not changed. We are trying to get as much people into this beautiful relationship with Christ, as many people as possible. That's the goal. And I think let's make sure the fact that let's be implementing all these things, so therefore we are actually changing society and positively shaping society, so therefore we can see a change, and things that are broken can actually be healed. So guys, I hope that you enjoyed this conversation. I definitely did. I want you guys to go away, get back into your cruise, talk about what stood out to you. Some questions are going to come up on the screen. So yeah, enjoy.